Don't live it up on someone else's dime, you parasite. My husband and I, along with my brother and his wife, found ourselves on an overseas trip due to certain circumstances. We managed to get under Belle's skin, leading to her hurling insults at us at the airport. Enraged, Belle started shouting and telling us to go back to America. My husband burst into laughter at her words. All right then, let's head back home. With that, our long-awaited counterattack began. My name is Catherine. I'm a 41-year-old housewife. I work at a supermarket checkout and have a good relationship with my colleagues. My husband Luke is 3 years older than me and works for a major electronics manufacturer. He's currently the manager of the General Affairs Department and is rumored to be a candidate for the next department head. My husband, who is deeply trusted by his subordinates and is very dedicated to his work, is a source of pride for me. One day, out of the blue, my brother Mike, who is a lawyer, paid us a visit. My brother and I have always been close, often sharing meals together. My husband has treated my brother like his own, and the three of us going out for meals was one of my joys. However, since my brother got married, these outings have become much less frequent. I've been avoiding Belle, my sister-in-law, because we don't get along, which has also reduced the time I spend with my brother. And now, suddenly, my brother had come to our house. Naturally, my husband and I were both surprised and asked him what was going on. I need a favor from you guys. We could tell something serious was up from the grave tone in which my brother started the conversation. He pulled out several photos and a voice recorder from his pocket and spread them out on the living room table for us to see. Belle, she's cheating. There in the photos was Belle, arm in arm with a man, presumably her lover, heading to a hotel. The voice recorder contained Belle's voice, affectionately talking on the phone with her lover at home. Conclusive evidence of her infidelity was right there. While Mike is at work, what is she doing? This is unbelievable. I was more furious than the person involved. It's absurd to stay silent when your dear family is being treated so terribly. I stood up from the sofa, pointing at the photos and raising my voice. But my voice halted abruptly when I saw someone in the pictures. Hey, Mike, the person in this photo is... Just as I thought. I came here to confirm that too. Convinced by my brother's words, I exclaimed in surprise. What? My sudden outburst startled my husband, who clutched his heart and said, You scared me. Don't shout all of a sudden. What's going on? This guy, he was my classmate in middle school. He was known for playing baseball, being irresponsible, and being a notorious womanizer. As I pointed to the face of the man in the photo and explained, this time it was my husband who raised his voice. You're being loud too, I sternly told him, to which my husband gave a wry smile and sheepishly scratched the back of his head. Unfazed by our shock, my brother continued. I'm going to divorce her, but honestly, I can't stand the thought of just letting her get away with this, so I need your help. Help? With what? My husband was puzzled by my brother's request. My brother explained that he wanted to ask if my husband's friend David could help. Honestly, I don't think anything I or Catherine say will affect her. She might be scared of Luke's dad, David. I think he could really make an impact. Come to think of it, at our wedding, she was terribly scolded by David and ended up crying. I remembered at our wedding when Belle, who was still just dating my brother, came into the dressing room. Until then, I hadn't had a bad impression of Belle. I thought her over-the-top behavior was just teasing, so I mostly ignored it. But it turned out she was mocking me. The turning point was during our wedding. As soon as Belle entered the dressing room, she burst out laughing at me. Pointing at me in my bridal gown, she started mocking me. You? In pure white? You're already pale and chubby. The white dress just makes you look even bigger. Belle was taking pleasure in ridiculing me. I was about to snap at her, despite her being overweight herself. But luckily, my father-in-law David was there too. He had been quietly reading a book nearby until my husband returned to the dressing room. David closed his book, slowly approached Belle, and began to confront her.
"Hey you, what do you think you're doing? Speaking like that to my son's bride?"
Belle's inexcusable remark had caught David's attention, and now this formidable man, easily over 6 feet tall, was towering over 5-foot tall Belle, intimidatingly demanding her to repeat what she said. David, naturally intimidating with his rugged features, would scare anyone at such close quarters. As expected, Belle looked like she was about to cry. "It's not like that. I was just teasing, that's all." Belle's pitiful excuses didn't convince David at all.
"Teasing? You find it funny to say such things? How old are you? You're not 3 years old to say such ridiculous things."
David, with his sound reasoning, pressed Belle, who was clearly shocked and started to cry, apologizing on the spot. I had to intervene to calm David down, as he seemed relentless in his scolding. Remembering this incident, I explained the situation to my husband, who immediately called David.
"Hey Dad, it's been a while. Actually, I need a favor. Do you have a moment?" "Huh, long time no see. A favor, huh? If it's about money, I can't help you."
David joked heartily as he laughed. David, a straightforward and hearty man, is sincere and dedicated in his profession. He works in construction, traveling around the world. Currently, he is living in Indonesia, moving from one developing country to another. Bringing up such a matter to David, I knew it could lead to a scolding or being a nuisance to him, but we were prepared for that. My husband thought it would be better for my brother, who could explain the situation more calmly and accurately, to talk to David. We entrusted everything to my brother and asked him to explain the situation to David. Upon hearing it, David was furious.
"That woman, I won't be satisfied until I show her a piece of hell. I'll re-educate her myself."
David, being family-oriented, was angrier than any of us and readily offered his help. Thus we decided on our revenge against Belle. When discussing how exactly to get back at Belle, David unsurprisingly suggested bringing her to him.
"Unfortunately, it's still difficult for me to return to America. Why don't you bring that woman to Indonesia, telling her it's a trip abroad?"
Contrary to our confusion, my brother was quick to respond.
"Is that okay? I can bring her to Indonesia, but what should we do after that? Has the woman ever worked outside the home?"
David seemed to have something in mind, as he first inquired about my brother's domestic situation.
"She used to work in medical administration before marrying me, but has been a housewife since. She said she wanted to properly keep the house, and all that." "What a load of nonsense. Luring men and then talking about keeping the house. I've decided, when she comes here, making sure her plane ticket is one way only."
"What do you mean, David?" We all exchanged surprised glances at David's statement. While we were confused, a mischievously laughing David could be heard on the other end of the phone.
"I'll take care of that woman for a while. I've been short of hands and looking for help. Let her work hard for a while, maybe get in some exercise too."
David's words were laden with meaning, and I could almost see his wicked grin. I hear evil laughter. I swear never to make an enemy of this man, I thought to myself. Thus we decided on Belle's vacation trip, which was actually our revenge plan. We immediately began to put it into action. As instructed by David, we arranged a dinner with my brother and his wife and had my brother invite Belle on an overseas trip. Even though Belle threw veiled insults at us during the dinner, I didn't let it bother me. Now is the time to make fun of us like this. This is our last chance to mock us, I thought to myself. Finally, the day of departure arrived at the airport. We were astonished by Belle's extravagant attire. "What are you wearing? We're going abroad, and you couldn't dress up more flamboyantly?" Belle taunted us while putting on a large hat. To Indonesia? Does she think she's a celebrity? I wonder what this person is thinking. Are you planning to be a celebrity? Walking beside her was embarrassing, so we kept our distance and confirmed the plan with my brother. Having finished with baggage and security checks, I started whining to my brother about being hungry. Mike, aren't you hungry? I want to fill my stomach before we go.
Me too. I don't want to feel sick on an empty stomach. Then shall we go to a restaurant?
Wait, if we're going to a restaurant, let's split the bill. We're already paying for your trip. Belle insisted. As expected, Belle, who is very particular about money, reacted to our actions. She had even had a big argument with my brother over paying for this trip. Despite not earning the money herself, she was acting all high and mighty. My brother and I exchanged glances and laughed. Careful not to let Belle notice, as everything was going according to plan. We headed to a floor lined with restaurants and entered the most expensive one we had researched beforehand, ignoring Belle's attempts to stop us. We ordered the priciest dishes, 2 per person, and decided to drink wine. A whole bottle of wine was prepared, and the bill came out to a substantial amount. Wait a minute. You guys are paying for this, right? We're already spending most of our money on this trip. Belle was truly obsessed with money. Without a word, I handed the bill to my brother, who paid with his card. Belle, seeing this, started yelling at him. What are you doing? Why are we paying the whole amount when they're the ones eating like fools?
We invited them on this trip, right? It's only natural to treat them to a meal if we want them to enjoy themselves.
I can't believe this. Are you out of your mind? Belle continued to shout, regardless of being inside a restaurant. Successfully irritating Belle, we paid and finally boarded the plane. We enjoyed our flight in the first-class seats my brother had reserved. This too was part of the act to infuriate Belle. Throughout the flight, my husband and I continued to raise Belle's tension, enjoying expensive wines and appetizers. Belle, unable to scream on the plane, was visibly seething with anger. We found the entire situation amusing and continued to indulge in luxury while infuriating Belle. We can't help but find the scene strange. I was enjoying a momentary luxury as I continued to increase Belle's anger gauge. After nearly 8 hours, we finally landed. Though I wanted to stretch my legs after landing, we had one final act to perform. My husband and I, along with my brother, stopped at various souvenir shops in the Indonesian airport and bought a range of local products. What are you doing? We just got here. But we might get hungry at the hotel, right? Mike, can we buy this too?
Sure, go ahead. Luke, you too. Don't hold back. Thank you, Mike.
We ignored Belle and kept buying items, filling our basket with local specialties and unique shirts. With our hands full, we started heading to the car that was supposed to pick us up, and that's when it happened. Enough is enough, you guys. As we were leaving the airport entrance, heading towards the parking lot, Belle suddenly screamed. The 3 of us exchanged glances and signaled each other with our eyes before turning dramatically towards her. What's wrong, Belle? You're shocking everyone around us. What's wrong? Your nerves. How much of someone else's money do you plan on spending? Mike, aren't you being ridiculous?
Why? It's a trip. We're supposed to enjoy it. If we don't, there's no point in bringing you along.
Belle, frustrated with no one taking her side, finally lashed out at us. Don't luxuriate on your husband's money, you parasites. We don't need you. Go back to America right now. My husband burst out laughing, as if he had been waiting for these words. Our long-awaited moment had arrived, and our counterattack was about to begin.
All right then, let's go back.
Laughing at Belle's words, my husband and I turned towards the airport, pretending to leave. Go. You're in the way. We're staying. Just go back on your own, you beggars. Her words were like those of a small child trying to stand up for themselves. My husband and I struggled to keep up the act, as we couldn't help but laugh at her ridiculous outbursts. Should not. We need to stay composed. If Belle finds out about our plan, it will all fall apart. As we were thinking this, Belle continued to hurl insults at us. Then suddenly, David appeared behind her.
"Why don't you just enjoy Indonesia with me alone?"
David said, placing his hand on Belle's shoulder and smiling broadly. Surprised by his voice and the touch on her shoulder, Belle jumped. Recognizing the familiar voice, her face drained of color, and she slowly turned around, terrified. Seeing David, Belle screamed and involuntarily sat down. Her ridiculous reaction made everyone but Belle burst into laughter. The response was so unexpected that we couldn't contain our laughter. Pretending to be surprised, my brother joked,
"What are you so shocked about?"
Well, I thought to myself that he was also a bit wicked. Belle stood there dumbfounded, probably wanting to say something but too shocked to speak. Finding her reaction amusing, my husband and I laughed until tears streamed down our faces. Unable to understand the situation, my brother crouched down to meet Belle's eye level, smiling broadly as he spoke to her.
"Well, we're going to head back. You take your time and enjoy Indonesia."
Saying this, he lightly patted her shoulder and left her with an insincere word of encouragement.
"Hang in there,"
before standing up. Unable to comprehend the words or the situation, Belle clung to my brother's leg, crying out, "Wait, please explain what's happening." Overwhelmed by anger and confusion, Belle exploded emotionally. "Why is he here? Why are you even trying to leave? What about me? You're just going to leave me here alone?"
"You were the one who said Catherine and the others should go back. I only came on this trip because they were here. I never wanted to enjoy it alone with someone like you."
"What?"
"You'll have plenty of work to do here. There's lots of volunteer work. You won't have time to be idle. Leave the rest to me."
With that, David pried Belle off my brother, holding her firmly to prevent her escape. Even though David was over 70, he was still actively involved in construction, and not someone Belle could easily escape from. As we three were about to leave Belle behind, she remained caught by David, screaming towards us. "Coward! You've been deceiving us from the start." "Who's the coward here? This traitor?" My words were sharp, and I glared coldly at Belle. "You, I will never forgive. You'll pay dearly for hurting us."
"Too bad for you. Good luck with everything. Bye."
With that, my husband and I, leaving Belle still making a scene in David's arms, boarded the plane to America. Belle, penniless, had no choice but to earn her way back from Indonesia. Of course, that wasn't her plan. Unable to take a part-time job, she resorted to volunteering and scraping together small amounts of money David gave her to save for her return. But earning money was harder than she thought. During the high season, plane tickets were double the normal fare. The cost skyrocketed, making it nearly impossible to return without working tirelessly from dawn to dusk. Upon our return to America, our phones rang incessantly every day. Naturally, my brother experienced the same. Both of us blocked Belle's number due to her persistence. Belle, who hardly worked, struggled with physical labor, lost a lot of weight, and cried daily, longing to return to America. After nearly 3 months, as her visa deadline approached, David contacted her, signaling it was time to return to America. Finally, the climax. I thought our revenge on Belle was over. On the day we went to pick her up, we approached the airport with solemn faces. "There! How dare you leave me behind that day? Why are you here?" Seeing Belle upon her return, she was thin and sunburnt from working outside, clearly showing how much she had been exploited by David. Her changed appearance made it obvious. We greeted her with smiles. Her anger at being abandoned surged, but her loud voice quickly faded into a whisper, because there was another person with us, my brother and my husband, and one more.
"Belle, I'm sorry. Let's break up."
To everyone's surprise, the person we brought was Belle's lover and my former middle school classmate. Actually, while Belle was in Indonesia, we had been in touch with him. Luring him to my house was easy, then confronting him with my brother was even easier. We laid out all the evidence of his affair and made sure he knew we were aware of his family.
Do you understand the consequences if I take this to court?
We cornered the lover. Tears flowing, he immediately begged my brother for forgiveness, pleading not to tell his family, promising to do anything. Hearing this, my brother successfully convinced him to agree to break up with Belle in front of us upon her return. This is how we brought him to the airport.
Wait, this can't be real. Why? Why are you here? Break up? Wait, why in front of him?
Belle was exhausted, and this turn of events was overwhelming. It's no wonder her thoughts couldn't keep up. Panic was evident on her face, fearing the revelation of her affair, but it was too late for her. We felt no sympathy for her, nor did we owe her any explanation. My husband and I silently watched my brother's actions, glaring at Belle.
You must have had your fun until now, haven't you?
No, please wait. It's not like that. Please, don't say anything more.
Our life together ends here. Let's get divorced.
No, I don't want that. Please. I won't ever do this again. I'll live honestly from now on, so please don't talk about divorce. Belle, back in America, was in utter disbelief and cried hysterically. Abandoned by her lover and now disowned by her husband, she experienced true despair. I watched her cry and scream with cold eyes, realizing how much a person can lose control in such a situation. Please, I'll do anything, just not divorce. Belle clung to my brother's legs, sobbing and pleading. She seemed not to care about the eyes of those around her. You said anything? Hearing her say anything, I walked over to where Belle was. Noticing my approach, Belle clung to me, apologizing profusely and begging. I'll do anything. I'm sorry for everything I've done to you. Please persuade him not to divorce me. If anything means anything, then never show your dirty face to us again. Honestly, just seeing your face makes me sick. I spoke these harsh words to Belle, who was crying and begging, filled with all the resentment and hatred I had. Hearing this, Belle fell into deeper despair and was at a loss for words. After that, everything happened very quickly. Exhausted, Belle didn't argue back and was practically dragged home by her brother and the person she had cheated on her spouse with, where they started the divorce proceedings. Belle was in a daze for a while, bedridden and barely able to eat, feeling cornered, but she knew it was her own responsibility. No one was supposed to feel sympathy for her. Eventually, Belle recovered enough to hold a conversation, and she got divorced from her husband. Now she's living a life just manageable enough to get by all alone. And so our peaceful daily life returned, and we decided to thank David again. Back then, I did pay my brother back for the huge shopping and dining expenses, but to my surprise, he refused to accept it.
You guys made my divorce and revenge possible. Let me pay for this. I'll thank you properly later.
So we decided to graciously accept his offer. This time, we ended up going to Indonesia for a celebration party. We enjoyed the trip, relishing the cuisine we couldn't fully appreciate during our last visit, and we got a chance to see the architectural work David was involved in.